All right, buckle up, because today's deep dive is taking us straight into a nail-biting finish in the MLB.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
We're talking about the National League wildcard race, which, as you know, came down to the very last day of the regular season.
And what a day it was.
So we're diving into your stack of ESPN articles that break down all the drama, focusing on how those final wildcard spots were decided. 3 teams, 2 spots. You couldn't script this kind of tension.
It really was something else. We're talking about a situation with more twists and turns than, well...
In a roller coaster.
Yeah, more twists and turns than a roller coaster. And thankfully, you provided all the info from ESPN articles, no less, to help us unpack it all.
Absolutely. We had the Atlanta Braves and the New York Mets battling it out on the field in a doubleheader, while the Arizona Diamondbacks could only watch and hope for a miracle.
And it's important to remember, these weren't just any regular season games.
Right.
The Mets and Braves were finishing a series that was actually delayed from earlier in the season because of Hurricane Helene.
Oh, right.
So the stakes were already incredibly high.
Talk about adding pressure to an already intense situation.
No kidding.
So let's break it down for our listener. We've got the Braves and the Mets going head-to-head, each team fighting for their playoff lives. Where did that leave the Diamondbacks?
Hanging on by a thread, really. The Diamondbacks were in a tiebreaker scenario with both the Mets and the Braves, meaning if even one of those teams won a game in the doubleheader, the D-backs were out.
Oof, talk about a tough spot.
Brutal, really.
Their entire postseason fate rested on the outcome of games they weren't even playing in?
Exactly. The Diamondbacks needed the Mets to sweep the Braves in both games of the doubleheader. Any other outcome, and their season was over.
Wow, that's a tough pill to swallow. So knowing the pressure was on for all 3 teams, let's talk strategy. What were the pitching matchups like for this crucial doubleheader?
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The Mets, they played it relatively safe, at least on paper. They went with Tyler McGill for Game 1 and had Luis Severino prepped and ready for Game 2.
Solid, experienced pitcher.
Exactly. But the Braves, they seemed to be pulling out all the stops.
Oh, really? How so?
They really did. For Game 1, they decided to start rookie pitcher Spencer Schwellenbach. Now, what's fascinating here is that Schwellenbach had actually faced the Mets twice already during the regular season.
Okay, so there's a bit of history there. How did those matchups go?
In a word, incredibly well for Schwellenbach.
Oh, wow.
One game was a complete shutdown, and the other was one of his best performances of the season, with a career-high 11 strikeouts.
Wow, 11 strikeouts. That's putting on a show. So the Braves were hoping he could replicate that magic against the Mets in this do-or-die scenario.
That was the hope, for sure.
Risky move, putting so much faith in a rookie for such a high-stakes game.
And that wasn't the only trick up their sleeve. They also had their ace, Chris Sale, waiting in the wings.
Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Chris Sale.
Yeah.
We're talking about the guy who led the National League in wins, ERA, and strikeouts this season, right? Why wasn't he starting in a game with so much on the line?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
Now, Sale had been dealing with a slight dip in velocity,
Right.
which landed him on the injured list briefly.
Okay.
The Braves were adamant that they were just being cautious with their star pitcher, saving him for a must-win situation.
Which, makes you think, were they being coy about the severity of his injury?
It makes you wonder.
Or, and hear me out on this, were the Braves playing 4D chess with their pitching rotation?
Okay.
I mean, starting Sale in Game 2, potentially facing elimination.
Yeah.
That's a gamble.
It was a calculated risk, no doubt. But we have to remember, the Braves were already guaranteed a playoff spot if they won even one of these games.
Right.
Their strategy was likely centered around maximizing their chances for a win in a best-case scenario, even if it meant a higher-pressure Game 2.
Okay, I can see the logic there.
Yeah.
So it's all about putting themselves in the best position for the playoffs, even if it means making a risky call in a must-win game. Fascinating stuff. But enough about the strategy. Let's get to the results.
All right.
Who came out on top in this epic doubleheader?
Well, in the first game, the Mets managed to squeak out a win against Schwellenbach, securing themselves a coveted spot in the playoffs.
Wow.
The pressure was on for the Braves in Game 2. It was win or go home.
And win they did. Right.
They did.
Meaning the Diamondbacks' hopes were officially dashed.
Yeah.
It's almost more brutal that their season ended without them even stepping foot on the field that day.
I know, right?
Just agonizing.
It's the brutal reality of tiebreakers. And this situation really highlights why those regular season series wins are so crucial.
You're telling me every win matters, but it's about more than just racking up wins.
Right.
It's about winning against the right teams at the right time to avoid these do-or-die tiebreaker scenarios.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And what's really interesting about this entire situation is that it sheds light on the strategic depth of baseball.
Yeah,
This wasn't just about which team played better on the field that day. It was about managerial decisions, calculated risks, and maybe even a little bit of luck.
totally. It really makes you realize how much goes on behind the scenes, right?
It really does.
We often focus on the players and the on-field action, but this whole situation with the Braves, Mets, and Diamondbacks proves how crucial those off-field decisions are.
Absolutely. It's about managing a roster, anticipating challenges, and making those tough calls when the pressure's on.
For sure.
Remember that whole Chris Sale dilemma?
Rather.
Will he start, won't he start? That's a perfect example of the strategic chess game managers play during a playoff push.
And speaking of Chris Sale, did those ESPN articles shed any light on whether his velocity was back up for that second game?
I don't think so.
I'm dying to know if the Braves were genuinely concerned about his health, or if they were just playing 4D chess with their pitching rotation.
Well, unfortunately, the articles you shared focused more on the overall playoff picture and the tiebreaker implications.
Okay.
They didn't delve into the specifics of Sale's performance in Game 2.
Okay, so that remains a mystery for the baseball history books.
Right.
Adds to the intrigue, right?
It does, and it underscores that in baseball, just like in life, there are always layers to uncover.
True.
Sometimes those unanswered questions are the ones that keep us captivated.
So true. It's that lingering what if, right?
Yeah.
What if the Braves had played Sale in the first game? What if the Diamondbacks had pulled off a miracle and snuck into the playoffs? We can analyze the past, but we can never fully predict the future, especially in baseball.
And that's the beauty of it all.
Right.
It's the unpredictability, the what-ifs, the strategic battles that unfold both on and off the field. All of it makes the game so captivating. At the end of the day, that's what we're all after, isn't it? The thrill of the unknown.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So to our listener, we hope this deep dive into the wild world of the MLB playoffs gave you a new appreciation for all the behind-the-scenes action. It's not always about who hits the most home runs. Sometimes it's about the strategic moves that often go unnoticed.
It's about understanding the game within the game. Who knows, maybe this deep dive will give you an edge in your next fantasy baseball draft.
Now there's a thought. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those what-if questions, and most importantly, keep diving deep.